morning column on WSJ.com. And I'm going to start with the same question that I started when we did the interview for that story, which is,
Great.
what time do you usually get up on Mondays, and what's the first thing you do after waking up?
6:30, 6:45, roll out and make sure my high schooler is awake in a subtle way that says, I need to make sure you're up, but I need to respect the fact that you get yourself up. Yeah. Then I go downstairs and start like the prep, like water bottles, vitamins, breakfast. And then he's usually out the door by 7:30. And then I usually grab my water bottle and head off for pickleball or tennis, but mostly just pickleball right now.
Okay, so I was going to ask about this because this is one of my favorite exercise routine answers I've ever gotten for the column. How did you discover pickleball?
You know, it's so funny. So the podcast. So a friend of mine in Houston listened to the podcast where we did an AMA, like an Ask Me Anything. And
Yeah.
someone said, I know you love ping pong and I know you play tennis. Have you played pickleball yet? It's like if ping pong, tennis, and badminton had a baby. And I was like, what? Because I'm a big racket sport person. So I was like, holy crap, I got to try that. And so I just talked about it. And then the next day, someone had listened to the AMA, and a friend of mine, and said, I heard you're going to try pickleball. How about meet me on the court this weekend or something? And then it's like everyone says this. It's insane. They're like, it takes you 5 years to try it and 5 minutes to fall in love with it. And I'm obsessed. I play like 4 or 5 times a week now.
That's amazing. And what do you eat for breakfast to start the week up, right?
I usually don't eat till about 10:30 or 11, and I usually eat poached eggs and avocado.
Nice. And do you take vitamins?
I do. I take D, a multivitamin. I take D. That's it.
Cool. And how do you boot up for Monday in terms of caffeine? You're not a caffeine drinker, right?
No, I gave up caffeine about 15 years ago. A therapist actually said, I need something for anxiety. Like, what do you have? And she's like, let's talk about, I'll tell you what she actually said. I said, I feel like I don't drink because I've been sober for it'll be 25 years next month. I don't smoke anymore. I feel like a turtle in a briar patch without a shell. And everywhere I move, I get, pricked and stuck, and it hurts, and I'm stressed, and I'm anxious. I need something. And she goes, why don't we try therapy and like living outside of the briar patch? I was like, ooh, maybe. But she said, I also want you to sleep 8 to 9 hours a week at night. I want you off of caffeine, and I want you to exercise 5 days a week. And that was super helpful for me. So I gave up caffeine then, but I'm still addicted to my decaf because it's the process part.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Cool. And so for your 2 podcasts, Dare to Lead and Unlocking Us, you told me that you're reading a lot of books as research. You said you haven't read like this since you were in your doctoral program.
No.
How many books do you usually read a week, and what's it been like to get to devote that much time to reading? It kind of sounds like a dream.
Yeah, doesn't it though? Because I'll be sitting outside in a chair in the sun. I'm working right now. I probably read a book and a half to 2 books a week. Yeah.
Cool.
And a book and a half to 2 books a week. And sometimes it feels fun and sometimes it feels like shit. Yeah. Oh my God, did you watch the show?
I watched the show.
I challenged her to watch. She asked me what I've binged recently, and it was, how do we think we say that? Schnitzel on Netflix, which is so amazing. And I asked you to watch it. What'd you think?
I'm a few episodes in, and I'm definitely hooked. It took me kind of a minute to figure out everything that was going on and who the characters were and their stories, but I'm loving it already. I loved that Shira Haas is in it because I watched her in that other Netflix show whose name I'm blanking on right now.
Unorthodox.
Yes, Unorthodox. But the cast is amazing.
The whole cast is incredible, and it just every season gets better and better.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, I can't wait to make it to season 3. Like, that's what you've been watching, right?
Yes.
Cool.
I'm off it now. I'm on to Oh man, I did not know when I heard like younger people talking about this as a dilemma, but I didn't know what a dilemma it was. I'm watching Schitt's Creek with my son and my husband, and I never understood the whole dilemma about she cheated on me or he cheated on me or, but I can't, they're going so slow because they, and so I'm almost going to start watching it behind their backs because I need to get caught up.
I respect that.
Yeah.
And so, one question that I liked our conversation around with your podcast, Dare to Lead, I was wondering, does everyone have the potential to be a leader?
Oh yeah, I mean for sure. We're in our 11th year of a leadership study right now, and it was really interesting because it was the first time in my career, and I've been a researcher for 25 years. It was the first time in my career where we asked this very diverse group of leaders, leaders who we consider transformational, from Ed Catmull at Pixar Disney to special forces to NGOs in Africa and oil and gas in Singapore. We asked leaders one question: what is the future of leadership? Who's going to be leading in 5 years and who's not? And it was the first time ever that the answer saturated across every person. And the answer was courageous leadership, braver leaders. The problems are so complex. There's so much uncertainty that we have to have more courageous leadership. And so as we started to look into what is leadership, how do you define it? It was clear to us that a leader is anyone at any level who holds themselves accountable for finding the potential in people and processes and has the courage to develop it. And I've met with C-suites for a long time and really saw very little leadership, and met with frontline factory folks and saw a ton of leadership. So leadership is not at all about level. It's about courage. It's about commitment and seeing potential in people.
I love that. And we also talked about how one major hindrance to being courageous and being a courageous leader is self-protection. So I was kind of wondering, how do we protect ourselves from self-protection?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it was interesting because my hypothesis for the study was totally wrong. Once courage emerged as the big quality for leadership, I assumed that fear would be the greatest barrier to courage, but it turns out that it's not. I mean, we're all afraid and brave at the same time all the time. Yeah. The greatest barrier to daring leadership is armor. How do we self-protect when we're afraid? And how does that self-protecting behavior move us away from our values and our goals? And so it's been really interesting. In fact, I just did a 2-part Dare to Lead podcast series on daring versus armored leadership when I went through the big 7 forms of armor: perfectionism, scarcity, being the knower instead of being the learner. And so it's a 2-part episode. I think each episode's about 30 minutes, but I kind of spell it all out in the Dare to Lead podcast.
Cool. Well, I can't wait to listen to it.
Yeah. You'll have to listen between episodes of Schitzel.
Exactly. With all the work you've done on vulnerability, do you think the pandemic has made more people realize its importance in their lives?
Yeah, I think for so many experiences in our lives, the definition of vulnerability, we just crossed 500,000 pieces of data. The definition of vulnerability that emerged from the data is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. That's what it means to be vulnerable. And sometimes we choose vulnerability, but sometimes vulnerability just happens to us by virtue of situations, of identity. I would think to be a Black person in the United States navigating the very deeply systemic inequities, vulnerability. And so the pandemic has been and continues to be a huge exercise in vulnerability for all of us. And just like any crisis, it has revealed broken systems, unjust systems. And it's been hard, and it's interesting because why is the ability, so it turns out that courage in leadership, or courage period, is 4 skill sets. They're learnable, teachable, observable, measurable. The biggest one is learning how to be in vulnerability. And so one of the things that happened, or is happening still in the COVID crisis, is that we see people do 2 things. I feel overwhelming uncertainty. I feel fear. I feel risk. And so what I do is I work that shit out on other people. You know, I'm the person that, you know, just attacks the worker at Costco because they asked me to wear a mask. I'm the person who derides science. I'm the person who, you know, and then we have people who are like, oh God, this is vulnerable. I need to figure out a way to breathe through this and lean into it because I can't take it out on other people, you know? And so to me, in fact, I posted something on Instagram right at the beginning. I said, man, this is a involuntary forced experiment in vulnerability. We will see the worst in people and we will see the best in people. And we will see very little in between.
Right. Well, and you were saying that there's kind of like another pandemic going on in the midst of this current pandemic, which is a mental health pandemic. And I'm wondering, what are some things that we can do to kind of take care of ourselves, take care of our mental health as we start to get back to, like, quote unquote, real life, normal life, you know, whatever that means.
Yeah, I think we need help. I mean, I think I've never in my life been working as hard as I'm working right now to find friends and family members, good therapists who are asking her, saying, my anxiety is not manageable by myself anymore. I think I might be depressed. I think during the pandemic, I realized that I'm lonely and loneliness is hard. I can tell you for sure, Steve and I have been together for 30 years. The hardest season of our marriage, parenting has felt very difficult. We see a lot of the divorce rates are high right now. The prescription medicine rates are high. I think we need help.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
and I mean, asking for help, talking about vulnerability. I mean, asking for help is such a courageous thing to do. You know, I mean, I'm back with my therapist. And it's, you know, I got off the phone with her the other day because we're not doing it in person. And I just thought, it's like eating healthier, working out. I'm like, why do I stop when things are good and wait till things get shitty again before I pick back up? I mean, it's just so crazy. Because to have a person who can listen and hold space for me, who's not impacted by my decisions.
Yeah.
You know, when it's your partner that you're talking to or a friend, they're very impacted by the choices you make. So I think mental health, and I think the other really just the opportunity to say this out loud. And Lane, this has been a crisis the whole time during pandemic, is domestic violence. Not everyone who has to be at home is safe at home. And so we really need, God, I wish we could just be kinder and more patient and gentler with each other, to be honest with you.
Totally. And it kind of struck me as you were talking that asking for help is something that sounds so easy and common sense, but it's actually such a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it's really hard because we stigmatize it. I have to say, like, this is the Wall Street Journal, so I'll say this for those of y'all listening for leadership reasons. I've worked with hundreds of leaders. I've never met a truly transformational leader who was not actively in therapy or getting coaching or doing both. Self-awareness is not a luxury, period. Hard stop. There's nothing else to add to that. And so, because the other thing is, you know, I said when we're in struggle, one of the hard things is we work our shit out on other people. But the other thing is we also work our stuff out on ourselves. You know, we, in the absence of good data and clear thinking, we make up stories, all of us. And those stories that we make up normally exacerbate our biggest shame triggers, our greatest fears about ourselves. And so I think we're not supposed to do this by ourselves. We're not wired that. We were never meant to.
Yeah. And back to kind of a couple of the routine questions
Yeah.
to leave things off with. Do you set aside a specific time to brainstorm or reflect, anything like that?
I'm a walker, and so I walk every day. And so I'm really big into walking meditation. And so a lot of times I will walk, I'll think through my work, and normally when I walk, I do the daily examine, which
Mm.
is I was raised Catholic. I'm Episcopalian now, but it's a kind of a Catholic meditation where you reflect back on the day or you reflect on the day to come, and it's kind of an ordered thing. And so I would say um, walking and then swimming laps. Those are my meditations.
Moving meditation.
Moving meditations, yeah.
Yeah.
I really tried the stillness, but I'm like Diet Coke, bread, milk. I go right into the grocery list.
There's nothing more relatable than that.
Yeah. But if I'm walking, I'm good.
Do you have a funniest or weirdest moment at home with your kids and family?
Now I was hoping you didn't ask me this because you asked me this.
Sorry.
You asked me this in the article, and I'm gonna.
I loved your answer. I'm sorry.
I know, but I'm just gonna totally get shit about it from everybody forever because people are like, wow, Brené, I didn't know this about you because people make up these stories that I'm like, she flips off people under the steering wheel while she's driving. Yes, I do. I'm trying to be wholehearted, but I'm not always wholehearted. But my kids send me these TikToks. I have a 15-year-old and 21-year-old of people scaring other people. And it shouldn't be funny. But holy crap, it's so funny. But like, I don't know what people are thinking on TikTok. I'm like, should I be on TikTok? Maybe I need to just be on TikTok because it's too funny. But just, I don't know, dumb things like this man was sitting with his mother, or this kid, probably 23 or 24-year-old kid, was like, someone in this house's spirit has been taken over by an owl. And the mom goes, who? And he looks at her and he goes, ah! And then she starts screaming. And for some reason, I laugh until I can't talk. Like I'm crying. Or this guy, I think he was British because he had an accent. Maybe, I don't know. I think he was British or maybe Scottish. But I think he got a mail order like nose waxing kit. And where you put the nose wax in and the little thing is sticking out from it, but he couldn't get them out.
Sure.
And his wife said, yeah, I mean, it's just, you know what? I like it because as someone who has studied human nature for, going on 25 years, it's so refreshing to me just to know how jacked up we really are and that most of us are just winging it. So that makes me really happy.
Cool. No, I love that. And TikTok is such a creative platform. And I know we're coming up on time, so I'll just ask you one last question.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice you've gotten that's guided you?
I can't remember. What did I tell you? Do you remember what I told you?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I've gotten so many, don't spit in the wind. Like, let me look. Hold on. I've got the article right here. Lane did just such an amazing job. Well, I don't have to look at that to know. I'll give you, I don't know if this is one I gave you. I've gotten a lot of good advice over the years and some shit advice too. But the best advice is when I'm losing my mind about something I did or something a failure. Someone told me once, think to yourself, will this matter in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years? And now at this point, I think if it's not going to matter in 5 years, I just can't get too worried about it. Yeah. And so, yeah, that would be
all about that perspective.
Yeah. The 5, 5, 5, and 5.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Thank you for tuning in and go online and read Brené's awesome column.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the interview. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Bye,
thank
everybody.
you.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.